The 80s were the wildest musical decade in human history. There was an insane level of diversity when it came to genres, artists, and bands. And all of these genres were pushing themselves to be bigger, better, and over the top, introducing crazy hairstyles and clothing that made them look like crazy scientists experimenting with synth beats. But none of them were as wild as heavy metal, and especially hair metal. It ruled the 80s and dominated the entire decade because of its wild and outrageous attitude, behavior, and sound.
From Walt Disney Pictures, it's time for magic. It's time for excitement. It's time for Cinderella.
It sucks shit! Heavy metal rules! Heavy metal rules! All that punk shit sucks. It doesn't belong in this world. It belongs on fucking Mars, man. What the hell is punk shit?
Hair metal is one of the most interesting subgenres of heavy metal because of its diversity and willingness to evolve and experiment. People these days don't really understand just how complex hair metal could be. Many view it as a joke or like a bad decade in music, despite the fact that hair bands sold more records than most other artists at the time. I mean, Quiet Riot literally beat down Michael Jackson's Thriller and took the first spot on the Billboard charts instead, which is wild to think about considering just how massive the Thriller album was. The fact that a heavy metal band overtook it was a huge deal at the time. Hair metal had a lot of different sides, and one thing people don't understand is that to be a glam rock band, you didn't necessarily have to look like Mötley Crüe or Twisted Sister. Not all of them had tons of makeup or wore spandex. Sure, most of them did have a style that usually did not reflect how they dressed outside of music videos or on the stage, which is something that made Metallica so popular because they dressed authentically and like themselves.
They're just like us. They party.
It's different. It's great.
Kill 'em all.
That album is the
Ride
best.
the lightning.
It's the best.
But even Twisted Sister or Mötley Crüe did not constantly run around in makeup. Especially towards the later half of the 80s, a lot of these bands switched to wearing denim and boots, much closer to their roots that actually came from the new wave of British heavy metal, a genre that heavily influenced 80s heavy metal and hair metal.
Love it to the morning. I'm gone. I'm gone.
The 80s were a great time for music and especially heavy metal. There was so much diversity when it came to bands and subgenres that it really wasn't hard to find a great new band. Hair metal in particular was everywhere towards the end of the decade. It ruled the charts, the news, MTV, and the radio, and even lived rent-free in the minds of conservative Christians trying to ban this evil devil's music. These guys were constantly competing with each other, which led to some iconic records, and it also brought about the era of MTV's Heavy Metal Mania and Headbangers Ball. It was the greatest decade for metal music and a time when heavy metal was still relevant and evolving. I mean, it was really everywhere, even constantly talked about on the news by politicians or various activists trying to ban it, such as radical Christians thinking metal was devil's music.
We're holding them responsible for encouraging kids to do violent acts against themselves.
But unlike most other heavy metal subgenres, hair metal was different in major ways. It tried to be as offensive as possible, it tried to push the limits when it came to crazy instrumental compositions and stage antics. One of its defining features was its look and presentation. The way these bands carried themselves and the way they dressed played a major role in their appeal and even the way the music sounded. Just by listening to most hair bands, you can already imagine how they looked.
craving for Ratt with their new album Invasion of Your Privacy and Ratt the Video. You'll never go hungry again.
Now, what have you been doing since you arrived in London?
Drinking.
They were full of long hair, sticky with loads of hairspray, makeup, colorful clothes and a smell that was a mix between women, cigarettes and bottles of whiskey. And this image wasn't just for PR purposes or attention. The music and their real-life behavior often reflected this look and party attitude.
Yes, the Paul Stanley workout tape for dirty minds and clean bodies. I will show you how to get the body you always wanted and the woman it belongs to. Yes, the Paul Stanley exercise tape. Join me, won't you?
The Paul Stanley workout tape, available where better videos are sold.
Because a muscle is a terrible thing to waste.
Because they were all about partying, getting laid and having a good time. The songs, aside from power ballads, were usually uplifting and made to get you head banging or dancing. It wasn't like grunge, for example, where bands had a habit of writing about dark and depressing subject matter all the time, which in my opinion is also why it's more fun to listen to something like Bon Jovi or Mötley Crüe rather than Nirvana. As amazing and legendary as Nirvana is, because there's only a handful of times that you can listen to songs that sound dark and hopeless. Bon Jovi, on the other hand, was made to be listened to on repeat all the time. Which was the case with most hair metal songs. Their whole idea was to be as pleasant to listen to as possible, and interestingly enough, the lyrics often didn't play a big role. A song could have highly questionable lyrics such as Winger's 17, but still be played by major radio or TV stations due to its catchy sound. Which is not to say that there was no controversy around such songs or that these bands didn't put any effort into the lyrics. There was, and they did, at least the major bands.
World Tour 85, August 7th at Pittsburgh Civic Arena. Get your leather together.
Mötley Crüe, for example, was constantly surrounded by media controversy either due to their reckless and out-of-control behavior or due to their music being written in, at least at the time, highly offensive and sexual ways.
JJ with the music news for you. Mötley Crüe has just entered the top 10 for the first time.
It would be unfair to say that hair metal was very superficial and had no substance to it, or that these artists were not capable of writing amazing and even deep lyrics. They were, and some of these people were extremely talented and wrote some of the most iconic songs ever made. Songs that are still played on the radio to this very day, not to mention the recent resurgence of the entire genre thanks to social media and sites such as YouTube, Instagram and TikTok. On a certain level, it was superficial in the sense that image and looks played a huge role, not just talent. A lot of these bands would straight up refuse certain people from joining if they didn't have the looks they were going for. But that's just one of the reasons why the genre is so great. These aren't just regular musicians, they are performers. When you went to see Mötley Crüe, Twisted Sister, Ratt or Quiet Riot for example, you knew that, besides some amazing music, you were about to see a wild show. These guys knew how to have fun, and they also didn't take themselves too seriously. They made music because it was fun and because they wanted to have a good time.
Hi, this is Paul Stanley, and guess who I'm spending tonight with? I'm spending tonight with you. I'm gonna have videos from Kiss, Scorpions, Iron Maiden new video, Mötley Crüe, what more could you want? On MTV's Heavy Metal Mania. I'm hosting with all my girlfriends, and we're coming looking for you. 10 p.m., 9 Central. Be there.